Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. I'm so excited that everybody's with us here today. We got a lot of people logging in right now, so we're going to kind of stall a little bit to make sure everybody can get online. Today, I have with me here the Burns and Mac crew. So my name is Monique Roberts. I'm the Executive Director of the PODS Association, and today is July 19th. We are 10 a.m. Central, and today is our PODSCast with Burns and Mac and special guest PG&E. And we're going to be talking about cathodic protection data within PODS. So very, very exciting stuff. We're super excited that everybody could join us online. We will be recording this podcast so that we can make it available on our LMS, our learning management system, as well as in our YouTube channel. So we invite everybody to first have a safety moment, as we do in our industry, as safety is paramount. It's pretty hot. I don't know whether or not if y'all noticed that, and I understand me saying that it's pretty hot is kind of like the understatement of the century, right? So we need to make sure that, especially those of us in the hotter areas, are taking care of ourselves and those around us as well. So we need to make sure that we are keeping tabs on our friends and also ourselves by checking out over on the left-hand side of the screen. There's a heat exhaustion or heat stroke board there. So if you're feeling faint or dizzy versus having a throbbing headache, if you have a throbbing headache, you may have a heat stroke. And if you're having a heat stroke, you need to dial 911 immediately and take immediate action to cool yourself or the person that you're helping until help arrives. Now, if it's just heat exhaustion, right, excessive sweating, cool, pale, and clammy skin, then get to a cooler or air-conditioned place. Or if you're like me, the rule is that, once summer starts, you stay inside until 10 p.m. In November, right? So, but make sure that you're drinking plenty of water, got to hydrate, and that if you're having heat exhaustion, to take a cool shower. So again, here's the symptoms and the signs between heat exhaustion and heat stroke. If you have excessive sweating, then it's heat exhaustion. If it's heat stroke, then you're no longer sweating anymore, and you need to dial 911 immediately. So again, keep a lookout for yourself and others as well. We want to make sure that everybody has a happy and safe summer. So a couple of housekeeping items. You have a GoToWebinar control panel on your screen right now. If you have any questions, please put those into the question box or the chat box. This is very much an integral communication platform, right? We're all integrated here, and so we want to make sure that you're participating and that we have full participation from the audience as well. Because we're recording this, there's going to be a lot of people that haven't been able to join with us live, and they're going to benefit from your questions as well. We're also going to have 3 polling questions, so we invite you to answer those polling questions as they come up as well. And again, this is all interactive, and the guys on the panel today are going to really hone in and get detailed on different aspects of this topic based on who's on the call and the questions that you answer. So make sure you participate there. And for those of you that were unable to join us, of course, we're going to be able to put a link up. And if you want to pass this on and share this with your colleagues, these podcasts are free to all PODS members and future PODS members. So please spread the word there. So we have a quick agenda here. Of course, we believe that asset knowledge is essential to confident compliance and enterprise risk management. And we're going to be talking about that and pulling in an operator as well to talk about how that's important to them. As we all understand, most significant incidents have shown that asset knowledge is paramount to safe operations. So that's the goal here with these podcasts, is to make sure that we're disseminating great information around asset knowledge management. So we're going to talk a little bit about our sponsors. We're going to get into why CP data is important, an overview of the gas mega rule, some current challenges, what's going to be different and changed in PODS 7 related to CP data, and then of course there's a call to action at the end here. So with that quick intro to PODS, if you guys are here, hopefully you are already all members of PODS and thoroughly engaged in our community. We're celebrating our 25th anniversary here at PODS. We're super excited about that. We have now, the PODS system is now over 200 operator systems worldwide in 36 countries. So you see all the little PODS pins with all the different countries that are represented there that use the PODS data model. And the PODS data model houses over 3 million miles of linear assets in the systems that support them. So it's really great that you get to meet all these people and see how PODS is being utilized within their organizations for asset knowledge management. So, in fact, I attended the Esri UC last week and met up with some of our PODS members in Brazil there, and going to be heading over to the Rio Pipeline Show here in the next couple of weeks to go talk about PODS there as well. So great to have everybody here. We're super excited about celebrating our 25th anniversary, and we're growing significantly. So if you want to learn how to be a part of PODS, we're going to cover a little bit of that on the back end. A quick overview on PODS 7, which is what the guys are going to be talking about today. PODS 7 was recently released and has been operator designed to comply with regulations and support specific pipeline operations. So, the PODS 7 model was built specifically so that you can take it apart and put it back together again. Our LDC customers our LDC members really enjoy the PODS 7 model because you can take whatever data tables that you want, you can affix them to UPDM through the Esri platform, and you're good to go. So it's great that you don't have to lift and shift your entire system anymore just to get into the PODS data model. And PODS 7 supports the entire asset lifecycle as well. So in October, we're going to be officially releasing to all of our PODS members the new PODS 7 for utility network plus APR. So we're really excited about that. Make sure that you sign up for our fall forum, which is going to be in Houston, as well as hybrid online on October the 10th. So more information to come there. So before we introduce the panel today, we like to just get an idea of who's joined us today. So we're going to launch a quick poll here to learn a little bit more about you before we introduce ourselves and who's going to be on the call. And we do this because, we have just such a wide array of people that participate in PODS and participate in these PODScasts. So we want to see who's on the call. That way we can speak specifically, hopefully, to your questions and what's important to you. So with that, I'm going to launch the poll, and you should see in your screen a quick poll that is a blue square that's popped up. So please select one of the following. I just want to say real quick, if you are using a secondary or tertiary monitor, the quick poll actually works the best when you're in your primary monitor. So if you're having trouble clicking on that button there, just pull that square over into that window over into your primary monitor, and it'll give you a better idea of it'll make it a lot easier, right, to be able to answer that polling question. So, and we're going to give it a couple of more seconds. We have 88% of you that have voted, and looks like that's a good majority, 90% now. Okay, so we'll close the poll, and we're going to share those results with everybody. And it looks like great. So we have a great mix today, guys. We have the majority of you are in cathodic protection, which is great, right? We all know that none of us have one job anymore. So you may have multiple different functions. And of course, being a part of cathodic protection and or GIS, you're always going to touch on integrity management and vice versa. So majority of you are with cathodic protection, but then we also have some other and GIS. We love the others, right? We especially love that because we are a very inclusive organization, and so we welcome everyone here. So with that, thank you very much for doing that poll, and we'll move over to our intros. So again, my name is Monique Roberts, Executive Director here at PODS. Really excited to have everybody on here. We have with us Mr. Cody Wood of Burns and Mac and Mr. Ashok as well, who needs no introduction. Everybody knows Ashok. He's been doing this forever and ever. And then unfortunately not live due to schedules, but we did have a pre-recorded session with Mr. Jason Klechka with PG&E that we're going to air with you guys that has some really great information as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Cody and Ashok to give you guys a quick intro of themselves.
Morning, everyone. Cody Wood here, Burns and McDonnell. I bring a CP perspective to the conversation here. I work with Ashok, and I have about 7 years of experience, a little over 7 years of experience, anywhere from field collection to, as far as CP is concerned, field collection to data analysis, design, all of this both in AC and DC. I've worked in West Texas where it's super dry. I started my career in New Orleans. So I've been in both areas that are super conducive to corrosion and cathodic protection, and then others that are a little bit more difficult. So again, this has been my primary focus for my career, and I'm truly passionate about the topic. Ashok?
Thank you, Cody. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining our company-sponsored podcast, and also I would like to thank Monique in organizing this. Anyway, my name is Ashok Adisimili. I joined Burns and McDonnell about 1.5 years ago as a principal consultant in the pipeline integrity team. Our team and I support pipeline operators in all aspects of pipeline integrity and data management. My professional career spans 30 years, and it is entirely in the pipeline industry, providing services in the areas of software development, data management, and integrity management. My educational background is I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in computer science. With that said, I would like to take Monique's permission to give my 30-year history of my professional career and also the evolution of the industry standard data models in the last 30 years. I mean, I know PODS is 25 years old or young, but I have seen prior to that several standard data models, and I was involved with. So with that said, I would say in 1993, after I graduated from my master's program in computer science, as I mentioned, and I joined MJ Hart & Associates here in Kansas City as a software engineer. And I started developing custom alignment sheet generation software for various operators. In those days, we did not have any database that stored the operators' data, but we used to receive data in the format of microstation CAD files and several comma delimited text files to take those as inputs and generate alignment sheets in a microstation file.
Jeez.
So I know it was so painful, especially my first software development was on a Unix platform.
Right, but you were like 4 or 5 years old at that point, right? Because you're still very, very young, right, Ashok?
Yes, I am. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, after a year or so, within our company, me and my other technical member, we thought like, why don't we create a database and have our production team convert that data from the text files in CAD and put it in a database environment. So we started doing that, and after that, we saw we can use SQLs and the programming languages to pull the data out of the database and generate alignment sheets. So that sped up our process of generating alignment sheets, and we were getting really nice, clean, and crisp alignment sheets out of it. So after about a year or so, then our company brought members from the Gas Research Institute and several operator organizations to work with our 3-member software team to develop our industry's first standard data model, which was named as ISAT, which stands for Integrated Spatial Analysis Techniques.
Yeah, and Ashok, It's great that you brought that up, because GTI is actually going to be presenting at the Fall Forum to close out our 25th anniversary, because as you said, that's where all the idea came from, right? Which eventually
Yes.
turned into pods, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
That
wonderful
that's
thing.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Sure. And if you don't mind, I'm going to do a quick bio for Jason, since he's not here with us live, but he did send something over, and then
Sure.
we'll jump into all of the good stuff that everybody came here for. So Jason is 20 years corrosion control and CP experience. He's a corrosion engineer supervisor at PG&E, and oversees complex corrosion and control programs and CIS, and for all of their gas transmission system, which is about 6,700 miles. And then, Jason, in his spare time, right, plays with his two kids, runs approximately 700 miles a year, and he's a certified yoga instructor. So I made a really bad joke last night, guys, on LinkedIn. I said, if you're feeling a little rusty and you need to do some yoga, Jason's your guy. So he's not here to tell me that I'm tell bad jokes, right? But that's okay, right? All right, so let's jump into the stuff. So guys, give us a quick overview of Burns and Mac and what you guys do.
Sure. Burns and Mac has 13,500 professionals. We span over 70 offices, and we are regularly rated top in many categories in for design firms. We were recently ranked number 3 in pipeline engineering services and in ENR. We're 100% employee owned, and this creates a culture focused on making our clients successful. One thing I'll say about Burns and Mac is that the employee ownership, ESOP, makes us truly passionate to make each and every project successful. Yeah, you'll see a map here. This is all of our locations, so we're never too far from you. And we span throughout the entire industry here. We service all sectors of the service industry and all phases of the design, procurement, and construction of pipelines and stations. So we are a true EPC company and have loads of experience in making these projects run smoothly and successfully.
All right, so Cody, let's get into it. Why is this important? Why is what we're talking about important today?
Yeah. So cathodic protection is in some cases people's passion, like myself, and then there's people who hate the word or think that it's snake oil. But when we really look at the statistics, these numbers that we see here from PHMSA, the pipeline incidents is attributed, 20% of the pipeline incidents are attributed to corrosion. And this is actually a majority of the incidents. We see this other 30%, which is material weld and equipment failure, but those are pretty much 3 different categories that are lumped into one. So from the way I look at this corrosion is probably one of the most important things as far as an O&M, from an O&M standpoint, and it's something that must be you must be diligent with, because a lot of times it's inside the pipe or it's under the ground, and it's very hard to see it happening, right? So and as you can see, this bottom number here, the total incidents are attribute for 11 trillion? No, 11 billion. My apologies.
Look, it's a lot. It's a bagazillion. How about that? We'll make up a number.
Yeah, it's a big number. So
it is.
I think that the most important number that we see on this, though, is the 260 fatalities since from 2002 to 2021. And at the end of the day, health and safety is the most important thing, right? These pipelines are under apartment complexes and through people's backyards, and and along roadways where people are sleeping or living or frequent on their drives home to and fro work. So this is truly where my passion comes in, and I feel like I have a responsibility to do everything that I can to prevent these things from happening. The money's great, but lives are important, most important.
Yeah, Cody, that's why we're so grateful to have you guys as a part of our PODS community, and so grateful for the PODS community, because when something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us, and not just us in the industry, but it happens to our communities as well that we live in. And we want to make sure that we're all operating safely. And so that's why we're so grateful that you guys have taken the lead with, writing a charter out to develop a working group for CP data in the new PODS 7 data model, because we're grateful that you guys are working with your competitors and your operators and everybody in the industry to move the ball forward as far as pipeline safety and data transparency related to the CP data. So thank you again for you and Ashok's time in getting all that stuff together. We're excited that y'all are leading the charge there.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk about the rule, because that's what you got to do. You got to get them in the rule and keep them in the rule, right?
Right. That's that's kind of, it's one of the functions of a database, right? We need to ensure that the data that we collect is accessible, that that you can produce it when you need to report it to PHMSA and other governing bodies. We have seen in very recently that there's been a major change within PHMSA regulation called the mega rule, or the gas transmission mega rule, and so this is kind of what we are. This is what we're looking at. How can we first and foremost create a data standard that is able to take in the data that we need for as far as CP is concerned, and then produce it in a way that is readable for both engineers as they analyze and determine risk throughout pipelines, but also so that they can report this information to the regulating bodies, PHMSA, et cetera, that need to know this information periodically to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. So kind of as we go through this, we see, and these are topics again on the mega rule, which is coding inspection. This has been a major change, and I think that it's going to cause. I think it's a good change. It is going to cause some changes in the industry. They're requiring that when new pipe is installed underground, that ACVGs or DCVGs are performed, and this is to make sure the coating isn't damaged. So the true focus on this is as you put the pipe in the ground, chains and machinery is used to do this, and it can cause coating damages, and coating damages causes corrosion locations, and if you're not diligent with your cathodic protection and other corrosion preventative measures, this could be a problem. So PHMSA has come in and said that these need to be, these indirect coating inspections need to be done in two situations: when a new pipe is put into the ground, but also if you trench over 1,000 foot of your pipe, maybe in anomaly digs, 1,000 continuous feet. And then interference currents. This one's interesting to me as well. They essentially are saying that operators need to be aware of interference, AC and DC interference. So AC from power lines that are co-located, a lot of times paralleling, and then DC current, which is, most typically from foreign operators or other CP systems in the area, and in some cases dynamic CP interference, such as trains, right? DC trains. So basically what they're requiring operators to do is be aware of their surroundings. So if your neighbor puts in a CP system, and you should be aware of that and test to see if it interferes with your pipe. Also, one that I think is going to be probably one of the most prominent is power line up voltaging. So many of the electrical companies are trying to produce more power. There's a larger power need, and so they're upgrading their power lines. They're adding lines to it, and when this happens, it increases the inductive current that could get onto the pipe, and those are opportunities for interference to happen. So PHMSA is directly telling operators that they need to be aware of this, and they need to remediate it quickly. I believe that the language is 15 months or 6 months from permit. And that time frame is commonly seen throughout this mega rule. External corrosion is, of course, CP. Potential surveys need to be done. I think a big change to potential surveys is if you see a CP, if you see a potential that isn't compliant with PHMSA regulation that says that it is cathodically protected, that CISs are going to have to be done. So you do your annual survey, you find a spot that has low readings, you remediate it. So you put some more CP out there, you crank your rectifiers up a little bit, or you add CP, or however you rectify the situation or fix the situation. That's great, but what they're requiring is a CIS from both directions of those low reading points to ensure that they are compliant. And then internal corrosion, there's been some edits to this. It's not directly to the topic of CP, but it is still corrosion, and it's basically they've asked for companies to bolster their monitoring of that internal corrosion. In other words, they want to know if there's deleterious gas inside of the pipe. And generally, I think the requirement was, or previously the requirement was, that you test that gas in the beginning, and I guess as long as nothing changes, it's good. But this the new regulation implies that there would be continuous monitoring required. And then I'm going to let Ashok kind of talk about the last point here.
Yes, yeah, another major part of the mega rule is placing emphasis on integrity management itself, where there are two areas that they are stressing more, is about data management and risk assessment. As we have seen, what Cody has described is just on the corrosion side, the amount of data that we are getting. But at the same time, we have ILI, inspections, repairs, and everything. So many various data sources are coming in. So they are placing more emphasis on data management, saying that the requirement is to collect, validate, and integrate all required data into a common system and perform risk assessment so that you can get an accurate picture of the state of the pipeline. So this has become a very key part. I mean, even though these guidelines were provided in the past in ASME B318S, PHMSA is finding that some operators are not following those. So they are placing more emphasis so that going forward, they'll take care of those things. The other area is about interacting threats. So as you know, in a risk assessment, you have several threats to consider. But what are the effects of interacting threats? That has to be considered also. Like an external corrosion, is it accelerating? Is it accelerated by the mechanical damage that happened to the pipe, or weather outside force, and so forth like that? And the last one is PHMSA's inspection found that some operators have not been implementing preventive and mitigative measures post-risk assessment. So going forward, PHMSA is expecting operators to use the knowledge from the outputs of your risk assessment and establish and implement adequate P&M measures to achieve risk reduction. So with that, I would move on to the next slide.
Ashok, quickly on this one, Would you say that
Mhm.
management of change would fall into this last category that we have up here? I know there's an emphasis on that.
No, in fact, just to concentrate on the topic we had in the podcast, we have only outlined few of the requirements, not all of them. And management of change is another one uh, in addition to these.
Yeah, but
That's all.
we're just talking about CP today, is what y'all are saying, right? So we're just gonna
Absolutely.
focus on that.
Concentrate on
Yeah, there's a great PSMS group out there that's doing a lot of work. You know, Jeff Weiss, who's former PHMSA, and Ashok used to work with us. They're doing a bunch of stuff with PSMS. So, but that's not what we're covering today. So I think, you know, where this came from, right, is that there's all these great changes that you guys are well aware of, and you, Cody, and Ashok are very knowledgeable on all of these changes that have come out. And so, you know, in true form, the PODS model wasn't really reflecting all of that, right? You couldn't figure out, you couldn't use the database to help you make decisions and give you visibility to these new aspects of the rule. So that is correct me if I'm wrong, that's where, you know, the brainchild of this charter came about, right? Like, how did we get here?
So yeah, I think that's the kind of the PC way to put it, right? I'll tell you from my experience, I was asked to be part of the integrity module and weigh in on CP. And so I went to a bunch of the meetings, and we went through the PHMSA regulation and was, you know, basically bolstering the integrity part of PODS. And then finally, I think Marissa wanted me to stop bringing up, you know, random things all the time. So she suggested that I open a module or run a module and see if we could get it out of her hair.
That's awesome. Yeah, she works crazy like all the time. She's such an incredible person and such a huge brain. And so, yeah, I mean, when y'all unearthed this Pandora's box, right? It was a lot of work. I think yeah, I agree. She probably got aggravated with talking about Rust all the time.
But no, I'm just kidding. I think that it made sense that we break this off because it is such a large topic, and I'm excited to go down this road. I think we're gonna bring a lot of good changes.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And because you guys are working diligently on your charter right now, which you're going to present to the TCG, the Technical Committee on Data Governance for PODS, and then once that's accepted, we're going to get you guys kick-started with your working group meetings and call for volunteers there as well. So we're really excited about the hard work that you guys are doing. So unless y'all have anything else, we'll go to poll question 2, because this is going to be integral in us understanding and crowdsourcing information, right, to develop this module, correct?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So the question here is, and for everybody on your poll, it's going to pop up. Do you currently integrate CP data into your enterprise pipeline database, i.e. PODS? So there are some people that aren't on PODS. We're grateful that you're here as well, especially because we want to make sure that you understand that PODS 7 is compatible with all other data models as well. And we have many different versions of it. But, you know, regardless, your enterprise pipeline database, you know, do you currently integrate your CP data into your interface? And this is crucial because we want to, what you guys are doing in building out the CP data module, sorry, is to ensure that all of this crucial data has a place to be and can be integrated into business decisions, right? Project prioritization, in addition to, you know, just your compliance, right?
Certainly,
And
yeah. Go ahead.
if you ask for full integration, then we'll be asking you to come join our working group to help us develop the CP module.
Oh, great. So now they're not going to vote on it because now they think they're going to be volunteered for things. Yeah, so we have over half of you that have voted in that poll. If again, if you're having trouble with voting in it, put it in your primary monitor. I'm going to close the poll now and share the results with you guys so that you can see. So looks like the majority of you are partially integrating your CP data into PODS, and wow, this really rings true, right? With second being no, not at all, and this really calls to why this work that you guys are going to be engaging in and starting is so important, right? Because Ashok, you've been running risks since Jesus was making cabinets. Like, you understand that
Yeah,
the more data the better, right? You got to know what's around your pipeline, what's in your pipeline. The more data the better, then you can make better decisions, right?
exactly. The more the merrier, that I would say. And that's what it gives a accurate picture of your state of your pipeline. I mean, that's what we are targeting for. And in fact, there are so many different data sources that come into play that CP is one of them, but at the same time, ILI, your inspection data, all that has to come together to properly assess your pipeline. I mean, that's one of the key areas that Megarule is placing emphasis on. So I had been helping our clients to integrate data prior to risk assessment and plan the activities throughout the year so that an annual risk assessment can be performed on a timely basis, and then post P&M measures can be assigned. So in fact, with that, I would probably give a quick example of my recent experiences. One of our new clients has approached us to review their IMP program. And as we were reviewing, we found that they haven't been able to run risk in the last 2.5 years. That means
Oh no.
the reason is they don't have enough resources to handle the data, or some experienced folks are retiring, and so they are facing all those challenges. So we reviewed it and we gave a frank opinion, and now we are helping them out to put all the data together and clear all the backlog, and then get them on board with the risk assessments and post-risk assessments.
That's great. That's a great example. And, that leads us to a great transition to another great example. So yesterday, we got to record a session with our PODS member PG&E, who's a client as well of Burns and Mac, and to speak frankly, right, on this polling question, as well as some of the challenges. So, fellas, if y'all are okay with it, I'll go ahead and share that recording that we have of you guys engaging with Jason there.
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. And then, can you see my screen?
I can see the PODS white screen, just kind of the overview for the
Okay. Hold on one
event.
second. Oh, shoot. Okay, sharing and play.
Yeah, while Monique is trying to play that recording, I mean, Jason has been so busy. I mean, he has a full day, all-day meeting with his CPR corrosion team, so he was unable to participate. Otherwise, he would have allowed to be part of this discussion in live.
Oh, shoot. Hold on, fellas. I am.
But I did see, kind of while she's working on this, I did see from the poll that there was, about 50, somewhere around 50% were partial integration. And I think that's representative of what I've seen in the field. What do you think, Shook, or seen in the industry?
Yeah, I've seen all over the board, but.
And we're going over poll question number 2. Do you currently integrate CP data into your enterprise pipeline database? PODS.
Yeah, so thank you again. I'm Jason Kletchka at PG&E. I'm a corrosion engineering supervisor for the gas transmission system. And we currently use PODS as our as-built repository. So we would answer somewhere, between 2 and 3. So we store our rectifier locations and our test point locations in PODS. So there'll also be the information that tells the size of the rectifier and whether it's a coupon test station or a 2-wire test station or a 4-wire test station. But that's all the data that currently resides in PODS. We don't have our maintenance data in PODS today.
Very good. So more on the permanent record and not permanent record and not on the instantaneous data.
That's right. So if you were to go out to the site, you know what you would find, but you don't know what it's ever been if you just looked in PODS.
Makes sense to me. So let's go to the next slide here. So yeah, I can imagine that operators out there kind of probably span all over this poll question, and there's probably a lot that are similar to PG&E. But here at Burns and Mac and through Ashok and I's experience, we've certainly seen some benefits in integrating CP data into PODS, even that instantaneous data or that historical O&M data. And a lot of things that we see is what we can imagine would probably be the best case scenario is being the single source of truth and being able to access your information not only in a standardized way, but also all in one place. And PODS has a really good way of showing this information in a linear way. And having all this information in one place allows you to quickly identify where those gaps and possible inaccuracies are.
It's definitely one of the problems, that is out there is, like you say, having that single source of truth or the cohesive story for corrosion. So being able to see all your data geospatially, really helps understand what the underlying problem is, because when you're in the field and you're investigating issues, or if you're doing compliance work, you may miss the forest from the trees. Your head is down in a reference cell, it's looking at your voltmeter, and you may miss some other underlying issue that you can't see, that there's a creek or a culvert or another operator nearby that you just can't see until you can look at that data geospatially later and go, oh, I missed this or I missed that. And a lot of the work that we do, we may not even be able to be out there. So being able to see on a map where everything is occurring lets us actually do some of our troubleshooting from the office while we have techs out in the field, and we can say, well, hey, you need to go, a street or two over and go look for a foreign operator, or you need to go, do these other things. And having all the data in one spot, lets you do that with, fewer people, fewer engineers. It just makes your job easier to have one place to go instead of, 5 or 10 places to go. You gotta know, like, one guy keeps his thing on the shared drive and the other guy keeps it in OneNote and the other guy keeps it on OneDrive. Whereas if it's all in one spot, it's a good way to make that single story as quickly and efficiently as possible.
I think we can all relate to that problem that we run into where, this guy uses one program or app and someone else uses another, and it's hard to get everyone in the same place on board seeing the same information, and it just gets exaggerated as we go into more and more important things rather than just meeting notes. Now we're talking about PHMSA compliance and pipeline safety and general integrity protection on your pipeline. So
well, that's right. Imagine someone has the files you want on their computer and they're out sick or on vacation during an audit. Now, how do you prove that you've done the work you're supposed to do if it's not in a single source of truth location?
Sure. Yeah, and then all of a sudden the criticism gets a little more heated as the auditors go through. So it's certainly, I think it's certainly something we all strive to have everything in one place, but there's of course difficulties and reasons why we're that's a struggle. But yeah, no, I think that this is your experience or your perspective on this certainly illustrates a lot of people's problems and things that we want to address as we go through our module and work through this PODS database. And one thing that I'd really like to see is and kind of the vision forward is establishing this information and locations of this information in such a way that we can see, we can produce reports that show, potentials related to colors along a pipeline on GIS, or be able to relate those resistance values on rectifiers or even anodes over time as it relates to pipeline potentials, those critical relationships that corrosion engineers look at to determine, is this a problem that happened quickly, and in other words, it's out of the ordinary, or is this a slow drop off that just needs some O&M maintenance? And those are the end results that we're looking towards as we work on the foundation of this data set.
It's also quite foundational to starting doing modeling. So if you have all of your data in one place to do cathodic protection modeling, then it's a lot simpler to input it into either to create a model in PODS or to utilize BZ or VPIMs or whatever to actually look at the underlying performance of the system from a computer modeling or geospatial modeling. So again, when you don't have to pull from everywhere, you can do some fun stuff with your data.
Yeah. This actually makes me think about AC mitigation and how that modeling's done. I mean, it's part of the modeling is spatial, and so those being able to give that spatial information to the team that's doing the AC modeling or to the contractor that's going to do it will only reduce the cost of the overall project, right? And this is just something that's if it's implemented correctly in the company, that would be able to be provided quickly and accurately. So there's all kinds of things that I'm sure that we can bring up about having our data in all in one place and having in a geospatial reference geospatially, but that's what makes this exciting for me. This is why I'm a part of this group and I'm working with the Shook, because I just see that there's so many opportunities that will benefit our clients and myself as I work through my career and try to find the best practices.
Yeah, Cody and Jason, I would like to go back several years from now, where I had been helping my clients with performing risk analysis on their entire system. But during that time, we did not have all the data together, so we had to scramble ourselves to get our annual risk assessments done in time, so that we can progress with our risk assessment and post-risk assessment procedures. So the first year was a difficult aspect, but next year we put in place all the data that is needed for risk analysis and look at the opportunities to work with the different teams within the company to bring all the data together and put in one database so that it'll be ready and up to date as and when we run risk analysis. That's one of the things. And not only that, like with the new mega rule phase 2 requirements, with respect to we'll be able to satisfy the mega rule requirements for the overall integrity management. And that's what I would like to let you know about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a good thing.
we've been working a lot on Mega Rule, the RIN2 updates, trying to build our own data sets to capture the data required by some of the new updates has been a struggle, just because each requirement has its own special needs and special requirements that were not there before. If you look at the DC interference requirements in federal code prior to the Mega Rule, it was you must have a program. And now it is very explicit that any determined DC interference currents have to be mitigated within 12 months, not to exceed 15 from the date that it's found. Like, that's a pretty dramatic change as far as tracking when the report was generated, when the data was gathered, and when remediation goes in. All of that now has to be captured and is compliance related. It's not just work that needs to be done. It has compliance due dates and compliance deadlines. So it's a pretty dramatic change.
Yeah, establishing the time of inception or the identification of the problem is just as important as knowing or having the end date that it's done. Yeah, and that exactly what you mentioned here, Jason, applies to AC. So as I was reading through, as I've read through this Mega Rule multiple times, it mentions if a foreign operator brings in a current source that needs to be identified, and you need to ensure that it's not causing interference. If an AC transmission line uprates their power line, those can trigger these the investigation and the mitigation. So it sounds like a daunting task to be not only aware of your pipe now, you have to be extremely aware of what's around you and diligent during your surveys to make sure that there's no foreign effect on your pipe.
Yeah, the newer pipelines with the better coatings, the buffer you have to look at just gets bigger and bigger. So we have some lines with AC induction that are, few hundred feet from power lines. They don't have to be right underneath them. It all depends on the quality of the coating and the proximity and the length of parallelization. Like, there's a whole lot of factors, and it's very complicated to get everything right. So as far as poll question 3, if I could have been there today, a lot of the struggles in integrating CP data is seeing the whole picture. So, we really struggle a lot with losing data and having the right people and enough people know where data exists. So, numbers 3 and 4 really do speak a lot to me, just because I think every company out there is trying to do more with fewer people. So those fewer people need to know exactly what they need to do with the data, how to find it, and how to interpret it and how to assess it. The other fact is, as systems change, data disappears. So, if you're storing all of your data in Excel and all of a sudden the company doesn't like Excel anymore, well, then all of that data has to be properly migrated into a new database. If we're moving, or if your company decides to stop using PCS or some kind of other database, you have to have a way to not lose that important data, because a lot of cathodic protection and corrosion is history. Corrosion doesn't just happen overnight. It's a systemic issue that likely happened over many years, and you need to have that history in order to make sure that you're making the right choices going forward. Because what's happening today isn't necessarily what's happened on that pipeline for 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years. So, however long your pipeline's been in service, maybe someone put in a rectifier 3 years ago and fixed some underlying problem that had been there for 65 years. But if you lose that underlying data, then you're kind of in a pinch in figuring out where corrosion happened, why corrosion happened, or what your compliance history is. If you start losing data, it's hard to prove that you're compliant without data. So those are the tough ones for us.
Definitely. It's when I started in this industry, it was one of the first things that I heard. Corrosion doesn't happen fast. But you have to know what's been going on for years before. So that kind of remind me of being out in the field and being told what not to touch, right? But good. Thanks, Jason. This has been extremely helpful and valuable to us and understanding your point of view, and I'm sure the listeners as well. We really appreciate you joining us, and look forward to getting your input in the future. Hopefully, as we put this module together, and maybe we can have you as a volunteer here and there to help guide us in the right direction.
I really like where this is going. I think it's a step in the right direction and getting everything in one place so that it makes sense. So I'll help however I can.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, and we're back. And so we are going to launch the last question right before we close up so that everybody can weigh in. Of course, don't let Jason's choices, mitigate what you're going to choose here. But if you can, please let us know so that everybody can see where all of their colleagues are at as well, and what are their current challenges operators are facing to integrate CP data from other databases. And so you can check one or more, right? Because usually it's not just one challenge that people are faced with in their day-to-day operations. So let's see, we have just a couple more minutes, so we'll close up right after this poll now that we've seen what the rule is, what the regs are, what the challenges are with data, and we heard firsthand from our PODS member company PG&E and giving us some input there as well. So we have about half of you that have voted now. Okay, now we are just over half. So I'll go ahead and close the poll and share those results so that you can see. Fellas, no surprises here, right? 56% is lack of resources, and that could be people, place, technology, processes, and all of those resources. And you guys see that a lot, right? In your day-to-day, right, Ashoka and Cody?
Yeah, exactly. As I mentioned before, the lack of resources and the availability within the data silos.
Right. So hopefully everybody can utilize the work that y'all are doing and that the PODS community is doing together so that we can streamline a lot of those things. And with that organization of data into PODS, hopefully it will require less resources on everybody's end. And then, of course, the other benefits, right, is that you'll have more data availability and accessibility as well. So we appreciate everybody participating. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, as we are approaching, trying to catch up with the mega rule and the requirements and all that, like I would recommend that you need to start looking at ramping up your resources, training them, and if that is not possible, then maybe bring in somebody, vendors like us to help you out. I just want to point that out. And so we all can be in the industry safe and sound.
Right. So what's going to be different real quick, guys, before we close up? What's going to be different in PODS 7 from previous generations and the work that y'all are going to do in the CP modules?
Yeah, Monique, you already covered the first few aspects of it. Like Part 7 was quite different from the previous generations to make it more flexible, available throughout. You could be deployed across the world where unit of measures or the naming convention is not specific to North America. And it supports life cycle of the assets, and also it supports the interoperability between the systems. That means you can exchange data between systems. And also the data model, there is quite a bit of documentation put out where even a non-database user can understand what is in place within the data model. And finally, with our working group that is going to be formed and work together, we'll be addressing the CP data within the new mega rule requirements.
Awesome. Yeah, so The call to action here, guys, of course, you know, PODS has a lot of resources and we'll talk more about that, but call to action here is to get involved. So we're going to be sending up a follow-up email to everybody that registered and attended with a link to this recording as well, and then also a form to go ahead and sign up to get involved in the CP working group. So guys, thanks again. Thanks so much to Burns and McDonnell for sponsoring this PODSCast and getting us all this great information. Thank you to Jason, of course, for helping as well. And then Ashok and Cody, you guys are the bee's knees. We really appreciate all the hard work that you guys are doing. And we understand that this takes a lot of time and effort, and we're excited about what the next steps are. So everybody, thanks so much again for joining us. And please make sure that you're following us on LinkedIn to see all of the great upcoming content that we have coming up as well. So you guys have a wonderful and safe day today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.